The sound of a heart monitor flatlines as a doctor calls time of death. But in the corner of the room, a young woman refuses to leave, clutching a worn notebook filled with impossible dreams. "This isn't how our story ends," she whispers, tears streaming down her face. "I promised I might finish what we started, no matter the odds." Asterisk. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of dreamers and fighters. Your support helps us bring more stories of courage and perseverance to life. Sarah Chen stood at her brother Michael's grave, the fresh dirt still dark against the vibrant green of the cemetery lawn. The notebook in her hands, his notebook, contained the blueprints for a revolutionary water filtration system designed for developing countries. It was Michael's life's work, his dream to bring clean water to millions. Now it was her promise to him. "I don't know how to do this without you," she whispered, the spring breeze carrying her words away. Sarah was a literature professor, not an engineer. The technical drawings in the notebook might as well have been hieroglyphics. But she had made a promise at his hospital bedside, and Sarah Chun never broke her promises. The diagnosis had come suddenly: aggressive pancreatic cancer. 6 months later, Michael was gone, leaving behind his unfinished work and his sister determined to honor his legacy. Sarah's apartment became a shrine to Michael's vision. She pinned his drawings to the walls, surrounded herself with engineering textbooks, and spent nights watching online tutorials until her eyes burned. Her friends worried as she withdrew from her social life. Her department chair frowned when she requested a sabbatical. "You're not an engineer, Sarah," her best friend Layla said gently over coffee. "There are other ways to honor Michael." "He believed this could save lives," Sarah replied, stirring her untouched latte. "If the situation were reversed, he would do this for me." The first prototype was a disaster, a jumble of pipes and filters that leaked everywhere. The second wasn't much better. By the third month, Sarah had depleted her savings and maxed out her credit cards buying materials. One rainy Tuesday, she found herself at Technovate, a local engineering firm, clutching Michael's notebook like a lifeline. "I need to speak with someone about water filtration systems," she told the receptionist, her voice steadier than she felt. 20 minutes later, she sat across from Daniel Reyes, the company's lead environmental engineer. His office was cluttered with models and awards, and his expression was skeptical as Sarah explained her mission. "May I?" he asked, reaching for the notebook. Sarah hesitated before handing it over. Daniel flipped through the pages, his eyebrows rising higher with each turn. "Your brother was onto something revolutionary here," he said finally. "But there are significant challenges. The materials he specified are expensive, and the design needs refinement." "I know," Sarah admitted. "I've been trying, but—" "You're not an engineer," Daniel finished for her. "No, but I promised him." Daniel studied her for a long moment. "Come back tomorrow. Bring everything you've done so far." That meeting changed everything. Daniel volunteered his evenings and weekends to help Sarah understand the principles behind Michael's design. He introduced her to his colleague, Priya Sharma, a material scientist who suggested alternative components that would make the system more affordable without compromising effectiveness. "Why are you helping me?" Sarah asked Daniel one night as they worked late in his garage workshop. "My sister died from cholera when I was 12, he said quietly, not looking up from the filter he was adjusting. "We lived in a village in Guatemala with contaminated water. That's why I became an engineer." The work was grueling. Sarah learned to read technical specifications, to understand flow rates and filtration efficiency. She cut her hands on metal edges, burned her fingers soldering connections. She failed 100 times, but each failure taught her something new. 6 months into her journey, Sarah presented their progress at a small engineering conference. Her hands trembled as she explained Michael's vision, but her voice grew stronger as she described the modifications they'd made. In the audience, Daniel and Priya nodded encouragingly. After her presentation, a woman approached her. "I'm Amara Okafor from the Global Water Initiative. We'd be interested in discussing a pilot program if you can demonstrate a working prototype." Hope fluttered in Sarah's chest, but reality crashed down when she returned to her apartment that night. They were still months away from a viable prototype, and her sabbatical was ending. Her credit card bills mounted, and the university was pressuring her to return to teaching. "I can't give up now," she told Michael's photograph. "Not when we're so close." Sarah took a second mortgage on her small condo. She returned to teaching, but spent every free moment in Daniel's garage. Priya introduced her to graduate students who volunteered their time in exchange for being part of something meaningful. A year after Michael's death, they had a working prototype, smaller, more efficient, and significantly cheaper than Michael's original design, but true to his vision. They called it the Chen filter, and it could provide clean water for a family of 4 for up to 2 years at a fraction of the cost of existing systems. The Global Water Initiative agreed to fund a pilot program in 3 villages in Kenya. Sarah took an unpaid leave of absence to oversee the installation. Standing under the hot African sun, watching clean water flow from the first installed filter, she felt Michael's presence beside her. "We did it," she whispered. But success brought new challenges. A large corporation offered to buy the patent for the Chen filter, promising mass production, but at a price point that would make it inaccessible to those who needed it most. Sarah refused. "That's not what Michael wanted," she told Daniel and Priya. "He wanted this to reach people who couldn't afford clean water." Instead, they formed a non-profit organization, the Michael Chen Clean Water Foundation. They applied for grants, launched crowdfunding campaigns, and partnered with humanitarian organizations. Progress was slow, frustrating, and often discouraging. 3 years after Michael's death, Sarah stood in a village in rural India, watching children drink clean water from a community Chen filter system. An elderly woman grasped her hands, speaking words Sarah couldn't understand, but the gratitude in her eyes transcended language. That night, Sarah wrote in her journal, "Today, 27 families have clean water because of Michael's dream. It's a drop in the ocean of need, but it's a start." The foundation grew slowly but steadily. Sarah balanced her teaching career with her role as the foundation's director. Daniel left his corporate job to work full-time on improving the filter design. Priya coordinated with universities to research new materials. 5 years after Michael's death, the Chen filter had been installed in over 100 communities across 12 countries. Sarah was invited to speak at a United Nations conference on sustainable development. Standing at the podium, looking out at the distinguished audience, Sarah felt a moment of vertigo. How had she, a literature professor who once couldn't tell a wrench from a screwdriver, ended up here? "My brother Michael believed that clean water is a human right, not a privilege," she began. "When he died, I knew nothing about engineering or water filtration. I only knew that his dream was too important to die with him." She told them about the failures, the financial struggles, the nights she wanted to give up. She spoke about the communities she'd visited, the children who no longer suffered from waterborne diseases, the women who no longer had to walk miles to fetch contaminated water. "When something is important enough," she concluded, "you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. You do it because it matters more than your comfort, more than your certainty, more than your fear of failure." The applause was thunderous, but it wasn't the accolades that moved Sarah. It was the knowledge that Michael's vision had touched thousands of lives and would touch thousands more. That night, in her hotel room, Sarah opened Michael's notebook to the last page, where he had written, "Water is life. Everyone deserves life." Below it, she added her own words, "And sometimes one life can change many others." 7 years after Michael's death, the foundation partnered with a major international aid organization to distribute Chen filters to refugee camps. 10 years after, they reached their millionth person served. The journey wasn't without setbacks, funding shortfalls, logistical nightmares, political obstacles, but Sarah had learned that persistence was as powerful as expertise. On the 10th anniversary of Michael's death, Sarah returned to his grave. The cemetery was peaceful in the late afternoon light. She placed a small vial of water on his headstone, clean water from the 100th village they had helped. "We did it, Michael," she said softly. "Not exactly how you planned it, but we did it." As she turned to leave, she noticed a young woman standing nearby, watching her hesitantly. "Are you Sarah Chen?" the woman asked. Sarah nodded. "My name is Lucia. I'm from a village in Honduras where you installed filters 3 years ago. Her voice trembled slightly. My little sister was always sick from the water. After the filter, she got better. I'm studying environmental engineering now because of what you did for us. Sarah felt tears well in her eyes as she embraced the young woman. This was Michael's true legacy. Not just clean water, but inspiration that rippled outward in ways she could never have imagined. That night, Sarah sat on her balcony, looking at the stars and thinking about the unlikely journey that had transformed her life. She had been a woman of words who learned to speak the language of science. She had been a grieving sister who found purpose in promise-keeping. She had been afraid of failure, but discovered that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the determination to continue despite it. The Chen filter would never be the most advanced technology on the market. The Michael Chen Clean Water Foundation would never be the largest humanitarian organization. But they had changed lives, one drop at a time, because Sarah had refused to believe that the odds defined what was possible. In her hand, she held a new notebook. Her notebook, filled with ideas for educational programs to accompany the filter installations. Because clean water was just the beginning. Education, opportunity, empowerment. These were the ripple effects of that first essential resource. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new obstacles, new reasons to doubt. But Sarah Chen had learned the most important lesson of her journey. When something truly matters, you find the strength to continue, even when the path forward seems impossible. And sometimes against all odds, you change the world. Not all at once, but one life, one community, one drop of clean water at a time. Asterisk as the sun sets on our story. Sarah opens her brother's notebook one last time, running her fingers over his handwriting. This was never about the odds, she whispers. It was about making a promise that mattered more than my fears. She closes the book and looks toward the horizon, where new challenges await. But now, she faces them not alone, but surrounded by a community built on one person's refusal to give up on what matters most. Asterisk. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories of courage, perseverance, and the extraordinary impact of ordinary people who refuse to let the odds define what's possible. Join our community today, and let's inspire each other to pursue what matters most, no matter the challenges ahead.